My name is Leah Schretenthaler, as Emily introduced me, and like she said, I'm currently a third-year MFA candidate here at UWM. This evening, I'll be discussing the inspiration for the installation that's outside the gallery called The Current Will Guide You. Before I go into depth about the installation, I'll be talking about my art practice. The inspiration for my work comes from my home state of Hawaii. My home is what drives my work, both conceptually and literally. My sculptural works, such as my bronze and iron lava castings seen in the hallway near the Fireside Lounge, are a very literal representation of Hawaii, while my photographic work takes on a larger conceptual approach that I will talk about next. My photographic works series is titled The Invasive Species of the Built Environment. Since I was born and raised on Oahu, I have watched my home change into something that's almost unrecognizable in the last 10 years. Due to the increase of the population and tourism, Hawaii has been forced to build to accommodate the influx of people. Through these photographs, the attention focuses on the spaces that these infrastructures impede on the natural environment instead of the idyllic colors of Hawaii. Using silver gelatin prints, which consist of selected man-made spaces that have attempted to be removed, create a burnt and sometimes empty area. The use of a laser cutter to cut the structure from the landscape leaves a scar upon the image. The removed spaces aid in seeing what Hawaii would be like without these impositions. Mauna Kea is sacred to Native Hawaiians and very important for researchers. In Hawaiian culture, an ancient law allowed only high-ranking ali'i, or chiefs, to visit its peaks. But by 1964, 13 telescopes were funded by 11 countries and have been constructed at the summit. Currently, the Mauna Kea observatories are used for scientific research across the electromagnetic spectrum and comprise the largest such facility in the world. Their construction on a landscape considered sacred by Native Hawaiians continues to be a topic of debate. Most recently, the 30-meter telescope, other known as the TMT, proposal in the beginning stages of construction created major protests from environmental and cultural groups that reached national headlines. Activists blocked the road to prevent trucks from gaining access to the summit. As of recently, activists have successfully blocked the build of the TMT for over a month now. The image on your right is of the Pali Lookout. This place is the first thing any kid growing up in Hawaii learns about. And the song goes, King Kamehameha, the conqueror of the islands, became a famous hero one day. He fought a native army and pushed it over the Pali and crowned himself king of Hawaii Nei and said, Alve no hoe, alve no hoe. He was the first king to unite all 8 islands. However, many visitors flock here to see the views and disregard the history. Now, my last image will lead us into the inspiration of the sculpture, and this image on the left depicts Waikiki, which is a man-made beach, and is iconic from the movies and television shows that are filmed in this area on Oahu. But there's a deeper Hawaii history. This is a beach where you could find local beach boys to teach you how to surf and the history of the area. But those were the good old days, where you could catch Duke Kahanamoku and his brothers surfing. Today, the beach is littered with big corporations who have kicked the local beach boys out of Waikiki. The almost 100 hotels and apartment complexes in Waikiki have forever changed the atmosphere of a place where many, including myself, said they caught their first wave. Through this body of work, it brings to light that these invasive infrastructures that have impinged on the natural environment. Although these images discuss visually the reality of Hawaii, it brings to light that this is not a one-state problem. Much like invasive species that we eradicate from our gardens and fields, so too should we approach these human invasions onto the landscape. No longer should humanity build for the sake of building, but should instead question the social and political concerns that exist in the natural world. As mentioned earlier, home is the seed to my art practice. The myths, cultures, land, and ocean have become points of reference in my work. The current will guide you references my connection to the water. I've been involved with the water since I was a baby. From the walks to the ocean edge before I could speak, the surf lessons in Waikiki in middle school, and the ocean water swims around the island during high school. The water has played a huge hand in shaping who I am mentally and physically. Even on the mainland, I continued to compete in swimming on the collegiate level. But the place I always return to when I'm back home is my most treasured surf spot, which is Tongs, pictured here, and that is my surfboard. It is a spot where if you are not searching for it, you will obviously miss it. This spot is nestled between two houses, where a path brings you to a rock stairs that leads you right into the ocean. Along the stairs is lined with slippers of the surfers who are already at the lineup. The paddle out feels like eternity, but it is one of the few surf spots on the south shore of Waikiki that still caters to locals. Like many surfers, I watch the currents, look up times of high and low tide, but I also study the ocean. Respecting and understanding the power of the ocean is a part of the surfing culture of Hawaii. The worst would be to paddle out in low tide and hit the reef, or try to paddle out to the lineup and have to fight the strong current, pushing you away from the surf spot. The image on the left depicts some of my friends that I surfed with in 2011. The image to the right is an old photo when I was in high school. My relationship to surfing inspired early photographic work, such as these over here. Although this work is over 10 years old, the inspiration of Hawaii has continued on the mainland, which is evident in the Invasive Species of the Built Environment project I talked about earlier, and the work of the current will guide you. Now, moving on to the sculpture. The inspiration for this piece came from my roots, as I mentioned earlier. While growing up, the water was where I competed in swimming, where I went to enjoy surfing, and a place to escape the busy island traffic. Coming to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee to continue my education, I have found that Lake Michigan serves as my escape in place of the ocean. In the installation titled "The Current Will Guide You," steel mimics the ocean waters I've grown up in, as well as the waters of my new playground. These 17 organic steel shapes are rolled and hung to replicate the movement of the water. The movement of the installation guides viewers into the gallery space just as the current moves us through the water. As someone who grew up surrounded by the ocean, I have found great comfort in watching the steady waves and currents. This installation brings viewers a sense of serenity and calls us back to nature. The process of creating this sculpture started with a very poorly designed maquette. After receiving news that my sculpture was chosen, I created 5 sample pieces. This process allowed me to estimate my work hours for the larger piece, and during this small creation, I was able to troubleshoot any issues that came about. For example, the original concept would be to clear coat the metal before clear coat the steel. But after a few months, the metal began to rust, and so I found that no matter how well I cleaned the steel before coating it, I was losing a rusting battle. After consulting my husband, who is back right there, who is a fabricator and a fellow artist, he suggested an aluminum finish spray paint. The new finish helps reflect the light, and then once the custom lighting is installed, the piece will really sing. These images up on the screen show the creation of the shapes and the layout to determine the flow before the pieces were curled. While creating this piece, there were meetings with the gallery director, Linda Corden, Pardee, the Director of Building Operations, Chelsea Pedler, and last year's UAG manager, Madison Outen, who is currently at the Penn State Museum. Right? Yeah. And she is the one that actually helped bring this opportunity to students. These meetings would consist of discussing the installation and deciding on the lighting to be installed with the piece. In the image to your right is myself, Linda, and another union director discussing lighting and the piece. And although this lighting is thicker, I'm actually going with a skinnier light piece than the one that's depicted here. Creating this large installation brought challenges. Since it is an indoor sculpture installation, I did not have to worry about weather, but I had to be aware of the height and the edges of the piece. Each wave had to not be low enough to block the exit sign, but as I was installing it with the lift, I had to move some of the waves a little bit higher just so the lift could have better clearance to anyone who was driving it. The image on the right shows the final layout of the pieces outside the Union Art Gallery before installed on the ceiling, and the image to your left is an illustration from Viking Electric, the company that we are working with for the custom lighting, that showcases the layout in red, and then the blue lines represent the custom lighting that will be put in, and that should be happening in November. So before I leave you with my closing remarks, I would like to thank Linda, Chelsea, and Madison for your support for student artists. And I would like to give a huge thank you to my husband for letting me bounce ideas off of you, helping me move my sculptures, and helping me install the work. And obviously my BFF, Emily, who helped bring this all together for this talk. I have a lot of students in the audience, and this may sound cliche, but my advice to the students is to continue to research, study, and explore the different areas here at UWM. Take advantage of the knowledge that your instructors are sharing with you. Also, never let any opportunity pass you by. If you are applying for things you want to accomplish, you are putting yourself out there and learning how to continue this practice outside of the classroom, which is very, very important. With that said, do not forget to apply for the Union Juried Student Exhibition in the spring. You will see posters all over in probably the next month or two. So, mahalo for attending my talk, and aloha a hui ho malama pono, meaning until we meet again, take care.